Hi everybody, just to let you know that we're going to be starting our webinar in about 3 minutes. Thank you. Good morning everyone and welcome to our webinar in partnership with Sonru. Today we're going to be discussing the candidate experience and video interviewing. My name is Dania Riyad and I look after the marketing programs here in EMEA. So let's move on to some webinar tips for attendees. Your audio is streaming over the web, so please make sure your speakers are both turned on and up. All lines are muted to avoid background noise. And please do submit your questions into the Q&A panel, which is in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. For all of those social butterflies among us, please do feel free to use our @Glassdoor UK Twitter handle and the hashtag #GGChat. So today's featured speakers are Daniel Richards, Managing Director of Sonru Europe, and David Whitby, Country Manager for Glassdoor. I'm going to hand over now first to David Whitby, who is going to speak us through the candidate experience.
Thanks, Dania. So I'm David, I'm Country Manager here at Glassdoor in the UK. I'm chiefly responsible for marketing our platform to users, or as you would call them, candidates, understanding their wants and their needs and how we can play a part in that. So hopefully today we can share some of the insights that we've learnt about that. So today we'll cover the fact that the world is changing, and especially recruiting, and how that impacts what we do day to day. We'll then look at what is an employer brand and why does it matter so much. We'll then look at what we've identified as the 5 stages of the candidate experience, and then Daniel will give us an introduction to Sonru and show us how video interviewing can be a powerful tool. And then finally, we'll finish up by answering any questions that you have. So the world around us is changing. We often talk about now being an age of information transparency. Thanks to review sites, which I'm sure you've all used, like TripAdvisor, Amazon, maybe Yelp, even Glassdoor, we're changing the way that we make decisions. Whether it's a hotel or a movie or even a potential employer, we no longer have to blindly hope we've made the right choice. We can take advantage of those who've come before us and learn from their experiences. And I think it's really important to understand that none of this is really new. We've always sought out this information. We would reach out to a friend, we'd talk to people in our network. Technology is just making that process much, much faster and much, much more comprehensive. And while you'd think that we'd only trust our close friends or family to give us their opinions, not total strangers, it turns out that online reviews are actually very, very influential. In fact, 84% of people trust online reviews as much as they would a personal recommendation. So with all of this information at our fingertips, it's now almost impossible to pull the wool over people's eyes, at least not for long. And that puts consumers in the driving seat. So just like consumers seek out information, job seekers now have access to a huge world of information at their fingertips. Thanks to Glassdoor, candidates can now find out everything they need to know about working for a particular company. Whether the pay is reasonable, what the office is like, whether management is supportive, the list goes on. And that can be pretty scary for employers. It means that the world of recruiting is really changing. You used to write a job requisition, now you have to build out an employer brand. Maybe in the past you've used recruiters to source your open positions. Now those budgets have been reduced and you have to do more with less. You used to fill your pipeline with applications, maybe fill the requisition and be done with it, but now it's about not more applications, but better hires, candidate fit, and employee retention. But we like to look at this as a good thing. Why? Because the best candidates, the ones that make the best hires, are the ones with the information who've done the research and have the right expectations going into the job. Your challenge is to attract those candidates to your company and to influence their decisions. So with so much information now available so quickly, job seekers are better informed than ever. And that has really shifted the balance of power from the employer to the employee. Candidates, especially those with really marketable skills and a record of success, are now carefully evaluating companies, positions, and job offers. They're picking and choosing where they want to work. That means that rather than waiting for candidates to seek them out, employers now have to compete in a talent marketplace. They need to be seen as a desirable place to work in order to attract the cream of the crop. Now, along with this shift in balance of power is the reality that the economy, at least for now, is still growing and unemployment is down at record levels. That's a really, really good thing, but it also means that finding those perfect candidates is even harder since there's so much competition for them. 65% of firms recruiting in the UK are seeing this already and expect to continue at least for the next 2 years. So here's the simple truth. You need candidates more than they need you. The challenge for every recruiter and every employer is to win the battle for the attention and the affection of those candidates. And the secret is to create a compelling employer brand and an exceptional candidate experience. So what do we mean when we talk about an employer brand? We all know what a company's brand is, right? It's the reason why when people see golden arches anywhere in the world, they know that they can go for a quick, cheap burger. It's why the sight of an apple with a bite taken out of it makes you think of mobile phones. We know companies with brands that are highly respected and probably some companies with brands that aren't so respected. But how is that different from an employer brand? And what effects does an employer brand have on a company? And how can you even influence it? So let's take a look. We often steal this quote from Jeff Bezos, who's the CEO of Amazon. Your brand is what other people say about you when you're not in the room. Your employer brand is, in a nutshell, the sum total of what it's like to work at a company. How would your people describe the experience of working there? Is it laid back? Is it work hard, play hard? That, in essence, is your employer brand. And ultimately, it's your employees who will define it for you. Your employer brand is really key to better recruiting. It's about making your company a desirable place to work that stands out from the crowd, so that the best candidates come to you, instead of the other way around. A strong employer brand is now more than just a nice to have, it's essential. It's a magnet for top talent, people who will help drive growth in your business. It helps you recruit better candidates and keep top performing employees around longer. So when looking at employer brand, there's probably more opportunities for candidates to interact with it than you probably realize. In fact, TMP Worldwide calculates that the average number of brand touchpoints or brand interactions is 19. Each time a candidate interacts with your brand, they have an opportunity to experience it, from the application form to the onboarding process. This obviously includes reading Glassdoor reviews as well, having conversations with HR teams, interviewing, receiving feedback, and more. So now that we've kind of established what an employer brand is and how often candidates actually interact with it, the next question is, how is your employer brand right now? You probably already have a sense. Maybe you're having trouble filling open positions. Maybe staff turnover is higher than the average for your industry. Sometimes these are signs that there's room for improvement. A healthy employer brand is a magnet for top talent. It speaks for you without you having to say a word. And it convinces candidates that your company is a place where they'd effectively like to spend a pretty large portion of their lives. So it's important that you know the answers to these three questions. Would current employees recommend your company to a friend? This is effectively the same as the Net Promoter Score, which you often see in consumer marketing. What are job seekers saying about you on social media? And what is your company rating on Glassdoor? If you're not happy with any of the answers to these questions, it's time to do something to improve perceptions of your company. So one way to do that is to embrace transparency. How many companies ask candidates how they felt about their interview process? Candidates feel valued when they're asked for their opinion. Asking for feedback on the interview process, even from candidates who are not offered a position, helps to build goodwill. But more importantly, it gives you actionable insights into how you can improve the process for future candidates. And remember that a candidate who maybe wasn't the right fit today could be the perfect fit at a later time. So we've seen that your interview process and how applicants feel about it can have a huge impact on your employer brand and, by extension, your ability to hire the best candidates. But before you start making changes at your company, it's really important to understand the process from the candidate's point of view, from their initial contact with your brand to the day they get hired and beyond. Once you understand that, you can work to create a more transparent, more seamless experience for everyone. To give you some insights, we've identified 5 stages that are present in almost every candidate's job hunting experience. So let's take a look at those now. So there are 5 stages of what we define as the candidate experience. That is the process of getting hired. And most of candidates will experience these 5 stages. After that, they'll form an overall opinion of what it's like to interview at your company, and they'll tell their networks. And that all contributes into your employer brand. So it's really important for your long-term success to make that experience a positive one. So let's try and get inside a candidate's head and look at these 5 stages. Before a candidate submits an application in what we term the pre-application stage, there's awareness, consideration, and interest. And then after applying, there's evaluation, and finally, a relationship. So let's go through these one by one. The first is, of course, awareness, or who is the company? A candidate's attention span has its limits. and your company is competing with other potential employees and life priorities. Research from the Talent Board, which has a yearly award for companies with the very best candidate experiences, found that 76% of candidates conduct their job search research across different channels before applying. Our own research here at Glassdoor shows that candidates visit, on average, 7 different job sites during their job search. So companies need to be on the channels top candidates use every day, engaging with them in a meaningful way to gain their attention and become their top choice. The next stage is consideration. So, okay, you've got their attention. Maybe you've got a well-known consumer brand. Maybe they just randomly saw a job listing and it caught their eye. Whatever the reason, candidates now want to dig deeper to see what your company is really like. Smart candidates, the one every organization wants as employees, naturally, will use all the resources available to understand more about each company, its culture, and the company's potential to fit what they're looking for. On average, as we've discussed, that research includes between 18 to 20 different touch points. And it's really, really important to understand that the smaller you are as a company, the more important each of those touch points become. You don't necessarily have a consumer-facing brand to fall back on. People don't know what your company represents and what your employer brand is. So every single one of those touch points takes on additional significance. The next stage is interest. What actions can a candidate take to show their interest? It's like dating, in a way. This stage is where many organizations lose their interested candidates. Your candidate just took a leap of faith with your organization. They've either applied for the job and are now in your funnel, or they've opted into your social or talent networks to learn more about your company, your employees, culture, and jobs. They've put themselves out there, and now they expect a thoughtful response in return. But in fact, too often, they don't hear anything back, ever. According to the Talent Board's 2015 Candidate Experience Research Report, almost half of candidates never receive any indication of the status of their application, and that reflects badly on you and on your employer brand. The next stage is evaluation. Are you right for me, but am I right for you? They've applied for a position, they've given you their details, and maybe you've spoken over the phone. Now comes the evaluation or the interview itself. At this point, you know more about the candidate than at any other point, and you're evaluating him or her as a fit for the job and the culture. But it's really, really important to remember that this sizing up process is a two-way street. A candidate is also deciding whether your company is a fit for them. Their evaluation of your company is not based just on the hiring process, but on every interaction they've had with your employer brand to date, whether you're aware of it or not. So finally, we have the relationship. Congratulations, you've both made the leap, the candidate's accepted and has a new company to call home. You gained a new employee. To kind of keep that dating metaphor going, you're now getting married. It's the honeymoon phase, so you're both happy now, but the next few months are crucial to whether or not the relationship will be successful. The last thing either of you want is buyer's remorse or that feeling of, what have I done? The key to getting off to a good start is a solid onboarding program. Onboarding is important to get your new employee up to speed and producing at a high level. But it's even more important for the new hire to feel that the company is investing in their success. Considering that research shows that a new hire costs a company on average somewhere around £3,500, you really want this relationship to last as long as possible. Forbes have recently pointed out that according to a study by the Winhurst Group, when employees go through structured onboarding, they are 58% more likely to remain with an organization after 3 years. So to recap a little, we have identified 5 stages that most candidates will go through during the onboarding process. Before they submit an application, there's awareness. Who is this company? Consideration. How do I learn more? And interest. How can I show them that I'm interested? After they apply, there's evaluation. Is this a good fit for me? Am I a good fit for them? And finally, the relationship. Did I make the right decision? Now that you have a bit of an understanding of what's going on from a candidate experience, you can start to tailor your hiring process to make the whole process smoother for job seekers. That'll help you hire more perfect fit candidates who will then help you to build an employer brand that works, and that ultimately will help your bottom line. With that, I'd like to turn it over now to Daniel Richardson from Sonru to talk a little bit about how video interviewing can help improve the hiring process for both candidates and companies.
Thanks, David. Actually, some great stats and great quotes in there, that's for sure. So just before we begin, I'll just start off by giving everyone a little bit of a background on Sonru, and then move into some interesting content. So first of all, we were founded in 2007, officially launched 2 years after that, after a lot of work on the product and the R&D front. But since then, we've been sweeping the globe with video interviewing and are now basically working with over 500 enterprise clients worldwide. Sonru is actually available in 18 languages and also is integrated to a lot of the ATSs, over 15 currently. And one of the key things and differentiators is actually we really focus a lot on the candidates. So we're lucky enough to have a full team of Sonru support experts in-house who are available basically every minute of the day to assist candidates or clients if they have any needs. So some of you may be familiar with Sonru or with video interviewing in general, but for anyone who's not, video interview is basically a job interview that takes place remotely using video technology. It can be either live or automated. We've nicknamed it asynchronous video interviewing, where the candidate and the recruiter are not online at the same time. Both types of the video interview enable you to interview people from anywhere in the world. You'll also see the candidate and assess nonverbal cues. It gives you much better feedback about the candidate than a CV. And one of the main points about asynchronous interviewing is that you don't need to allocate time to both scheduling and conducting the interviews. Over 60% of the candidates complete their interview on the weekends or off work hours. It's also often used to replace by our clients for more traditional forms of early screening, such as doing a telephone interview. So, I mean, there's a lot of benefits to using video interviewing, but removing geographical boundaries, for example, is key. But actually, the best part of it is actually once the completed video interviews have been done, they can also be shared with other stakeholders, whether hiring managers or other recruiters, and then that really allows you to do a collaborative approach on your recruitment process. So now let's move on to the more interesting bit, which is really how can you really fully engage candidates and put your company as part of their front of mind as an employer of choice. And employer branding is key. So I'll be touching a few key areas. Basically, the first bit we'll be looking at is the full disclosure from the beginning of the process, and also discussing a little bit more about the first touch with the candidate, showing you some examples there as well of how we do it, and then the branding, which is obviously key to reinforce your company message. And then we'll show you some of the company video introductions, how video is also used to drive engagement, and then also providing more details to the candidates is one of the key things that we tell our clients. And then finally, I'll touch on the follow-ups. First, full disclosure. I think it actually makes complete sense to tell your candidates from the get-go what the recruitment process is going to be. Your job postings, career sites, everything should be a perfect opportunity for employers to flag that video interviewing is going to be part of the process or whatever process it should be. The candidates will actually appreciate it. It's a well-known fact that actually they love to know what's ahead of them. But for you as the recruiting organization, it shows also how on the ball you are, and from the get-go, you provide them with a full overview, 360 view of what they can expect. And even though it's at the early stage of the communication, it can also have a bearing effect on overall satisfaction levels from candidates, is what we've noticed, especially for candidates who have not yet experienced a video interview. So here's a quick example. This is BT, one of our clients here in the UK. If you go on to many of our other clients, you'll see something similar, but it just basically highlights that a video interview will be part of their recruitment process. And actually, from a candidate, they feel fully supported from the beginning. They're not blindsided from any part of that process, and the outline is also something that they can revert back to if they're unsure what comes next. So we even have some of our clients who actually have put the process in video format, which is kind of cool. It's available on YouTube. So just as this is clear examples that actually you can show your candidates and give them the full overview before they start even the process. The next bit is really the first touch. So one of the key things is, especially in relation to a video interview, is the candidates will receive an invitation email. And this gives you the opportunity as an employer to set the tone of both the interview and your company. It gives them all the information they need about the process, and also you can set expectations for the candidates around what they will have to do and what you're looking for. It can be in-depth. I'll show you some examples in a minute. Or it can be completely tailored to fit your company tone, your voice, showcase some company personality. We've actually carried a lot of research around this, and time again, we've actually noticed that allowing the candidate to feel informed directly impacts the satisfaction levels. We have on our website a great case study, a great survey, around 500,000 interviews that have been completed over the last few years. And it's one of the key things around. We want to know what to expect. So how can you put this into play with Sonru? Here's an example. This is our standard invite. It's short. It's basic. It tells the candidate exactly around the introduction. It serves as a thank you for your application as well. But at the same time, it's packed with general information, and it's clear that for some company, you can actually miss a large opportunity to inject more personality and show the candidates what it's all about. We actually give you here on the next example a more customized invite, which is what it looks like for how we encourage our clients to use it. So the setting the tone allows you to just show off your company's tone of voice. Welcoming the candidates also is in the process is kind of cool. This is actually an example from Forrest, small software company that operate salon software actually. So they want to show that they're a cool, innovative company at the same time. And the logo brightens up the invite with the company colors, gives it a little bit more tone. In this example, also, they're using informal language from the beginning to set the tone. We often tell clients, make sure if you're not a formal organization, even to tell them actually that they don't need to dress up to be doing their video interview. So offering specific job details also to remind the candidates of the role that they're applying for and the offer for reasoning on why they're choosing a video interview. It's really key. It ties it all back to what your organization wants to achieve, and it really encourages the candidates to complete and progress within your recruitment process. It brings it all back also to showcasing and promoting your organization as an innovative, forward-thinking employer. Obviously, this is an IT software company, but some of the other examples that we have with some of our clients, you can see actually that they're really trying to show a positive light to the candidates. And then the next step is really the branding. That's where actually showing off your brand allows you to remain front and center, whether it's on your careers website or now on the interviewing process, it makes candidates feel like they've never left your careers site as well. It benefits you and your candidates through enhancing the engagement levels, reassuring the candidate that they're moving in the right direction through choosing you, and importantly, improves the candidate's satisfaction with the process. So standard branding would look something like this, pretty bland. It's just an example to show you, but, it's unbranded. Candidate interview will get the company colors and a tutorial, but nothing to get really excited or drummed up about. It's missing, the company's personal mark, in my opinion, at least. And it can be sometimes actually a little bit more impactful on your candidate experience. From our side, actually, this is what you could look or really expect. Shazam. That should make you want to go and book a holiday on Thomas Cook if you're looking at this screen right now. So it's a worlds apart, basically, from the basic branding that I just showed you guys. We've got Thomas Cook is definitely one of my favorite brandings. I've got a few other ones that I really love. We've got a great one with Mercedes. That one rocks. We've got a nice one also recently with DHL, pretty cool one. So if anyone wants to see what other cool stuff from a branding perspective we're doing, give me a shout. I'm more than happy to share the ones that I'm entitled to share. But actually, you can actually just see it here that Thomas Cook is making the candidate feel like part of the recruitment process and not just any old process. These guys are sending out thousands of interviews every month. The fully branded page, the logo, everything just reflects Thomas Cook. And it's an opportunity for the candidates to feel more engaged with the process and get more excited about applying at Thomas Cook. That kid jumping in the water, it's cool. It screams holiday. So if some of our branding accounts, the way not every company would brand it this way, but actually, you want to reflect who you are as an organization. That's really important as part of the branding. And we can be, at Sonru, we can make some pretty creative, cool stuff. Next bit is using company video introductions. So obviously, you're using video interviews as part of your process, or some of you are, and it makes absolutely sense that you use video also to your advantage. And candidates actually love the fact that if you're using videos to show off your company or even show off to your people, that's key. And then it just puts a little bit even further internal identity to show that you are also comfortable of using video. From our own research, actually putting a face to the process, meaning the recruiter introducing themselves, is the single most factor for candidate engagement. It increases the completion of candidates completing their video interview by over 10%. Generic videos that you might have about your company, how cool it is to work at your company, those also improve the satisfaction levels. They add a bit of a personal touch, but actually, if whether you can or cannot, depending on your budgets, obviously, it doesn't even have to be a big production, to be honest. We've got some clients actually even that have sufficient budgets, and what they've done is actually they've used their own iPhone or Android to record themselves, and the recruiter just gives in hi, I'm so-and-so, thanks for applying, and really these are some of the tips I would give you before you begin your interview. And it will personalize the whole and give that human touch, even though you're using video interviewing as a process. We all know you don't get a chance oftentimes to meet every candidate face-to-face, but when your business is all about candidates are potential customers, you need to make sure that you also give them that human touch back. Some of the cool other stuff, I posted one on LinkedIn just yesterday, one of the video introductions by one of our clients, Retail Marketing Group. So if you're interested in having a look at that. But some of our other clients actually have shown like the hiring managers introducing themselves. You can be creative. You can actually just basically get the candidate to know who's going to be their potential boss. And it just, it showcases your company culture. And we've got some great examples. Some of our clients allow us to share their video introductions. And if you do want to get in touch, we're more than happy to show you some of these. Now, providing a little bit more detail. I think detail is key. We all know that. It's a huge aspect of every stage of the candidate journey. And the more information or accurate information, the more you put a positive outlook on your employer brand is key. It all works out to boost your employer brand, but also give that extra edge if you're in a more competitive talent, whether you're trying to hire people that are techies or whatever it might, engineers. It's key to put a little bit more of that detail. And here's some examples. The interview title. We all know we want to make sure the interview title is specific, but also self-explanatory. So if you use the interview title from your ATS, that might have a bunch of letters and codes at the end. That might turn off some people a bit. But more importantly, it's about this interview. It's something that we allow you to display. And it's really a section about another opportunity to offer some tips to the candidates and also a little bit more information about what the process is going to be for them to start their interview. And again, just bearing in mind that there may be candidates that have never completed a video interview before. So we want to be as transparent as possible, help them put them at ease, and position you, the employer, in a more positive light as an employer who really cares about their future employees or candidates. Next bit would be all about the company. I think everyone knows Rolls-Royce. They're one of our clients, but you can research it on LinkedIn, on the company website, great. But rather than using that standard company description, what we try to tell our clients to do is, why don't you just put it a little bit more interesting so that the candidates actually go, oh, wow, okay, I didn't know that fact about Rolls-Royce. Or in this case, highlighting company culture, just talking about the type of people who work for you, showing what kind of candidate you might expect from working with you guys. And then, you can really help a candidate right here to just give them a good feeling of your company, but help set the right tone for the interview ahead. The other thing in Sonru, you can also add attachments. So the candidates oftentimes will download the attachments, read a little bit more about your company. Could be just a fact sheet, whatever it might be. You can put it quite interesting. A lot of our clients also have role-based scenarios, so you might have attachments where actually you require to make sure that they read the scenarios before they begin their interview. It's just important here to note that one of the great things about this kind of software is that it really levels the playing field for all candidates. Every single candidate receives the exact same information, the exact same opportunity, and that stands to you as the employer, offering all the candidates the consistency and fairness throughout the recruitment process. Last but not least, the follow-up. I think everyone hates that, to know that they're applying into a system, whether it be an ATS, a big black hole. But I think the importance of following up with the candidates is key. We've gone through the process from start to finish to make sure that the candidates are best assisted, but also we close the loop with the candidates afterwards. So we allow them to rewatch the video introductions. You allow them to also rewatch their interview. They can't edit it because once they've completed their interview in Sonru, it's saved. But at the same time, if you want, you can allow them to rewatch their interview. We also send them a quick email, just letting them know actually the interview is completely saved, and the recruitment team from X, Y, and Z company will be in touch soon. So your candidates are often your candidates are often your customers. So if they're unsuccessful, you still want them to have that positive view on your employer brand. And we've got some clients, a lot of retail clients, whether it's John Lewis, Asda, Morrison's, big names in the retail sector, H&M. You want to make sure that actually the candidates get that positive vibe, even though they didn't get selected. And then it rounds off also your employment branding efforts from the last touch point, allows a final opportunity for you to remain and share some whatever information you want. So 4 quick things: keep it personal, inform and engage, embrace video. It's consuming the world, and then close the loop. Those are the 4 key things from a video interview perspective. Our client success managers work with our clients constantly to make sure that actually that happens throughout. We want to make sure that the candidates complete your video interviews, and that's key. That's it from my side. David?
Thank you, Daniel. That's very cool technology. So I just wanted to sum up a few key takeaways. I think what we've really seen today is that candidates are consumers. They have options and they know it. The challenge for recruiters is to present their companies as places where these candidates, the best candidates, want to be. Now, a big part of that is about job seekers having more information. 75% of global consumers depend on conversation with their peers to help them make important decisions and to overcome concerns and warn them about risks. So it's really, really important that you have a positive employer brand out there for people to have a positive reflection of your company. And then finally, I guess one of the keys to winning the attention and the affection of your candidates is what we sometimes talk about as transparency or engagement. It's about being open and honest and transparent about your company, about embracing feedback as a gift and something that you can take action from to improve your processes, and to demonstrate real concern for the people that you're talking to from the very first touch point with them to the last. We think that these steps will take you a really long way towards creating a really compelling employer brand and an exceptional candidate experience, and that in the long run will have a very, very positive impact on your bottom line. So now I'd pass back to Danya for a Q&A, I think.
Thanks so much, David. Thank you, Daniel and David, for a fantastic webinar. It was great listening to you both. I am just going to take some Q&A from the audience. I'm going to start with a question here that I have for Daniel. Daniel, how do I decide if I want to be sending custom invites versus standard invites? Do your clients see more success with the customized?
Absolutely. Actually, the more customized the invite is, they'll see, just think about every time you receive a system-generated email, it's system-generated. I get companies just trying to approach me even for selling me products, and I can see the ones that were handwritten versus the ones that actually are just blast emailed and auto follow-ups and all that kind of stuff. It's the same for candidates. So if we have the template. We require sometimes the clients to come up with the content, or we might suggest some creative ways to change the content. But actually, we see a lot more candidates completing an interview when it's customized.
That's really good to know. Thank you so much, Daniel. So next we have a question for David on candidate experience. David, which stage of the candidate experience would you say is the most important for the employer to get right?
That's a really, really difficult question. I think it really depends on how you define getting it right. Typically, people would kind of focus on the bottom of the recruitment funnel. So they would look at what we talked about as being the relationship, so making sure that someone's a good hire and they're retained, or the evaluation, making sure people have a good experience when they're interviewed. But from an employer branding experience and an employer branding perception, it probably makes more sense to look at the other end of the funnel. If you think that you might get, let's say, 500 applicants, you interview 10 people and you hire 1. If you end up with 500 disappointed applicants, that's 500 people who are going to have a negative perception of your company, who are going to tell their friends, tell their colleagues, tell their network. And that's not going to do anything good for your employer brand. So I would say it's probably the interest stage that we talked about. It's making sure that people do get a thoughtful response from you when they've submitted an application, when they've taken time to kind of jump through those hoops and go through the obstacles that you put in their way. As we heard earlier, 1 in 2 candidates never hear back on the status of their application. I recently talked to a fairly major supermarket, and they said that their research into this showed that when someone has a negative experience, even just in terms of not hearing back on the status of an application, the research shows that they'll be less likely to shop at that supermarket in future. So not only does that kind of experience have a negative impact on the employer brand, but potentially on the company's bottom line. So I would say definitely the interest stage is probably the most important from an employer brand point of view.
Wow, thank you. That's really interesting and good to know. So thank you, David. Next, Daniel, we have another question for you. So looking at the future of interviewing, do you think that video interviewing is going to become a main tool that is used by companies?
Actually, that's a good one. We've seen actually an increase on roles over the last 5 years. Initially, a lot of companies were trialing it a lot more and weren't necessarily sure about using it for more senior roles. But today, actually, the adoption rate has greatly increased. Even on the senior roles, we actually just published today our first a new case study with OECD, and they've used it primarily on senior candidates. I mean, I've got clients doing 50,000 interviews a year plus, and I've got some clients who actually will use it only for certain roles. So, but what I'm seeing as a trend right now is some of the big employers that I mentioned throughout the presentation, they're using it sometimes for every single role. We've got a client in Switzerland. It's a requirement that you will have to do a Sonru interview. You'll get Sonru'd, as they say, before you can even be considered to join their organization.
Nice, I like it. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Daniel. I think we have one more question I think we're going to take, and then we're going to give everyone back the rest of their morning. So, David, there is a question here with regards to reviews. My company has a couple of bad reviews, and I fear that this is impacting my employer brand. What do you suggest?
Yeah, that's a very common question. I would say the first thing to do is not to get emotional and not to panic. It's really important to remember that even the best place to work in the world has points that could be improved and isn't necessarily for everyone. So the first thing to do is, I think, to take a deep breath and to look at the feedback as something that you can act upon, even if it's a review that you don't necessarily recognize the content of, even if it's something that you disagree with. For somebody at that point in time, it reflected their experience in their company, and there's usually some kind of gem of an insight that you can tease out from that. The next thing to do, if you haven't already, would be to register for a free employer account on Glassdoor, which will allow you to respond to that review. So that might seem like a weird thing to do, but it really shows that as a company you're listening and that you're embracing that feedback. I think somewhere in the range of 70% of candidates have a more positive perception of a company having seen them respond to a review. So I would definitely register for that account, respond as quickly as you can to show that you're paying attention and that you're not kind of leaving it 6 months before you deal with these things. And then in your review, I would look to acknowledge the bad points, but really, really highlight the good points. And make it clear that you're a company that is dedicated to continuous improvement and that will take the feedback on board. And we have some really, really great resources available on our website for employers that can give you some tips on how to respond to those reviews.
Thank you so much, David. And that is really helpful feedback. So thank you so much to both our speakers, Daniel and David, today. You've shared some really great insight, and it's been fantastic to listen to you both. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to reach out to Sonru on the email address on the current slide. If you have any questions for Glassdoor, please do the same at our employers.uk@glassdoor.com handle. I want to thank you all for joining us this morning, and hopefully we will see you on another webinar soon. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.